All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is Daily Vlog 2025, number 188. And today, um, last night was real bad, like real bad, so we're not going to talk about it. Instead, we're going to talk about the video games. Specifically, I read a headline recently. It was basically stating something to the effect of, I think the headline was something like, the video game industry can't take another $200 million bombshell. Basically referencing the fact that there have been quite a few really big budget games that have not done they've done real poorly, have not done well recently, and have been financial losses. Some bigger losses than other, but overall it has not been a great time for AAA publishers, and definitely a horrible time for quadruple A publishers, because the only quadruple A publisher that has ever existed was closed down before ever releasing a single game. However, one of the things that I think is really holding back just the games industry in general is, in my humble opinion, these massive price tag games. And I'm not talking about like games getting more expensive or anything like that. I'm particularly talking about, like, good example, when Star Wars The Old Republic came out. If you're not familiar, Star Wars The Old Republic is an MMO. It's still going on right now. It is not what it used to be. However, if you want to play one of the best single player Star Wars video game experiences that have ever existed, play the class campaigns from Star Wars The Old Republic. They take you from level 1 to level 50, which is nowhere near the max level anymore, but everything after that is not as good. But those specifically are amazing. They are better than Knights of the Old Republic, definitely better than Knights of the Old Republic 2. Anything, they're better stories than the stuff that's come out more recently. Like, they're just amazingly well done. The reason I bring it up, when it first came out, it was the most expensive game that had ever been created. And if I remember correctly, I might be misremembering this, but if I remember correctly, it cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million. And the reason it was so expensive was because every line of dialogue in the game was voiced. And it wasn't like, just random people. No, they had like big name voice actors that were a part of it. Like Johnny Young Bosch is in there. Lacey Chabert plays one of the companions of the bounty hunter. Johnny Young Bosch was, I can't remember. I know I can picture the companion. Can't remember which campaign or which class he belonged to. But anyway, it was this really big game, and it was this massive thing. And after it launched, it didn't do super well. Like I said, the actual leveling process from 1 to 50 is excellent. It's so much fun. It's so incredibly awesome and amazing. But this is an MMO, not a single player game. And MMOs need to have a good leveling process, but they make their sales based off their end game content. Because generally the leveling process you're going to do once. But the end game content you're going to be doing over and over and over again. And when Star Wars The Old Republic first launched, it really didn't have end game. I think they had like 1 or 2 like raids, which I can't remember what they call them in SWTOR, but And that was really it. Like there was a little bit of like high level crafting, but it really wasn't that useful. And there just, once you hit max level and you completed the campaign, there wasn't that much to do. Now they started adding more stuff, but by the time they started adding like really good stuff, the game itself had done, had lost all of its luster, and they had to switch it from a subscription model to a free to play model. And again, they're still releasing updates for it. You can still play it right now. There's still cool stuff going on, but it wasn't the groundbreaking game that everyone thought it was going to be. And it had issues. Now when we look at more kind of modern games, basically the larger the price tag you see on a game, for the most part, the worse it's going to be at launch. And I think the big problem that we have is basically this idea of too many cooks in the kitchen. There are just too many people working on these games. And because they have these massive, massive staffs, they have to justify paying that many people by creating these games that can do absolutely everything in the world. You get this massive, massive feature creep. And then the game itself, like basic things like, assets staying where they're supposed to be on the model, don't get done. And it launches in a super buggy state, or it's so poorly optimized that you can't play it at launch, or a million other things. And again, I think it has everything to do with the fact that there's just too many people working on an individual game. And when we look at something like Baldur's Gate 3, Baldur's Gate 3 was not created by a small group of developers. Again, Larian has over 100 employees. So this is not a small game, but compare that to something like what's it called? Dragon Age the Veilguard. Like, they're a tiny, tiny fraction of the group that created Dragon Age the Veilguard. And when you factor into the fact, when you factor in the idea that Dragon Age the Veilguard was had a 10-year development cycle where they basically developed like 2 full games in that time. Well, 1.5, because the game that came out really wasn't what it was supposed to be. So when you look at that, like, there was just significantly more people, and the Veilguard is demonstrably a worse game than Baldur's Gate 3. Like, any metric you want to measure it on, the Veilguard is not as good as Baldur's Gate the 3. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it wasn't this massive, massive thing that you had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people putting thousands upon thousands of hours into. It was a much smaller team. They had a very specific idea of what they wanted to do, and then they did it. They also had the benefit of, 2 years in early access, which is absolutely invaluable when it's used correctly, which Larian actually did. But there was recently, what was it? There was somebody, I can't remember who it was, but he made this post, I think on Twitter, or it might have been Blue Sky, I'm not sure what. It's on some social media platform where he works in game development, but he works for big like AAA companies. And he saw all these indie games, not only like creating good games, but they were making bank. And he had this little rant where he's like, it's really not fair that so few people are able to split that much money. Really what should be happening is they should, because they're doing so well, they should hire more people so more people can reap the benefits of of all the money that they're making, kind of completely missing the point of why their games are doing as well as that. In his mind, it's like, well, it's not fair that I don't get some of that money too, because I'm a game developer. So if I was working in that, completely sidestepping the fact that just because that's your job title doesn't mean, first of all, you're any good at it. Second of all, that you would develop that particular game well. There are certain people that just do certain things well. But he, again, the mindset of him and a lot of other people in the industry are just like, well, I have the title, so I deserve to get paid for it. And I think that's a huge problem with the video game industry just in general. You have all these people that just think they're entitled to getting paid no matter the quality of their work, no matter how much work that they've actually put into it. It's like, well, like, again, he saw this other game that was made by like a dozen people, and it's like, it's not fair that I don't get some of that money. You know, I could have done exactly what they did. No, you couldn't have, because you didn't. If you could do what they did, why didn't you? You only have to find 11 other people that are just as good as you, and then you can make your own, you know, multi-award winning Giga game. But you can't, you didn't, because you can't. You don't have that skill set. I have no idea if this guy's if that dude was good at his job or not. I have no idea. I just remember reading that and going, that is what is wrong with the industry right now. Is it is flooded with people that have a very low amount of skill, not because they're just real bad. They just never, they don't have the experience enough to be able to get the skills that they need. And to be blunt, most degrees right now do not teach you any skills in any way, shape, or form. They're not worth the money that they're not worth the paper that they're printed on. So you have these unskilled people that are watching these people that are extremely skilled and then getting upset because they're like, well, I have the same job title as him. Why can't I have that money too? Well, just because you have the same job title doesn't mean that you deserve to get paid this is the same thing. There still is the idea of the more valuable employees get paid better because they're better at their jobs. I know some people don't like that idea, but... So anyway, like I said, I saw this thing about, you know, the games industry can't afford another $200 billion flop. And I just got this idea of, well, what if instead of making another $200, $300, $400 million game, you took the same, like, 300, 400, 500 people that are working on these massive games, and you chop those teams up into small, like, 50-person teams and maybe a couple 20-person teams, and have them all make just smaller games. Expedition 33 is not a massive game, but it's probably going to either be runner-up or win Game of the Year this year, because it's a phenomenally well-made game by not a massive studio. And it looks better than games that spent 4 times the amount of money on their art assets and stuff like that, because it was just a small team of people that were put in their position because they were the best at doing that. And so I'd love to see massive major studios go, okay, I'd love to see BioWare go, okay, we've got, 500, coders. Let's chop them up into like 7 teams and have each one work on a different game. I think that would make a significantly better market. And it also means, and that's one of the other big problems with these massive games, I think the Veilguard sold well over 1 million copies. And it's still considered a failure because they spent so much money on it that it had to be a best-selling game title to break even. They're putting so much money into these things that they have to be smash hits. You can't have an okay game that sells okay and still make money from it, because they're just forcing all this nonsense amounts of money, and a lot of it is just payroll going crazy. And I get it, like base level programmers and stuff like that don't make a lot of money. So it's not like the 100 coders that they have, or like Unity experts or whatever your job title is. It's not those people that are shooting up the payroll. But even if you're only looking at $60,000 a year, which is somewhat that's pretty close to the average salary of just a working American. If I remember correctly, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 54, 55 grand a year is the average salary in America, or the average annual earnings in America. So this is like an average pay for an in-demand job, 60 grand is not a ludicrous amount. But when you have 100 people making 60 grand, that's $600,000 a year. You know, and most games to take most games, I think, average like build time for most games somewhere between like 3 to 4 years now. So you're talking about $2.4 million just on the entry level dudes. And then the higher you get on the food chain, the closer they're getting to 6 or 7 figures. Yeah, massive portions of these overinflated budgets are going directly to payroll, and it doesn't need to be there. Anyway, like I said, it was a weird thing I was thinking about, and I would love to see the games industry stop making billion-dollar games and go back to making $100,000 games that are actually fun to play. Interested to hear from you guys. Do you think I'm 100% wrong that it's not payrolls that are fucking up all this stuff and massive teams that don't need to be there? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me today. I will see you guys in the next time. All right? Bye-bye.